Let's roll. This is Countercharge, your podcast for ranks, flanks, and kings of war. Join your hosts as they delve into the world of Panithor and bring you worldwide coverage of all things Kings of War.
Welcome to Countercharge. I'm Matt Croger.
I'm Rob Enough.
And I am Jeremy Duvall. We're excited to be back for our April Fireside Chat. I know, Rob, I've really grown to love these episodes. It's nice to sort of just connect with the community and also connect with you and Matt, see what everyone is up to. I know we just had a very exciting, the content has, hopefully you guys have taken a chance to listen to everything. But Adepticon was pretty cool, right?
Amazing. My hobby fires were stoked.
Yeah, definitely for me too. Came out of Adepticon super jazzed, super ready to go. A lot going on in the community. We'll take you through our community updates first. I'll go ahead and go. Masters prep continues. We have released the April edition of the Masters Minute, which has information on how to sign up for Best of the Rest. So please take a look at that document as a very simple Google form, followed with a address to send your entry in via PayPal. So that is now live. Check your region page on Facebook or reach out to your region chair for information on Best of the Rest. Also, for many regions, they've either wrapped up their season or Lone Wolf, which is happening the weekend as we record this, is the final event. So we'll be entering the mercenary process. So if you didn't quite qualify for your team, but you're interested to be a mercenary, reach out to your region rep, and they'll get you connected with whoever is needing mercenaries. And then the mercenary process, Rob, each region submits people who didn't make the team, and then the team leaders who need people will get together, and it's kind of like a draft. We sort of officialized it last year, where all the mercenaries get into a pool. And then the region chairs who need people, we just take turns drafting those players.
When we started this a long time ago, we would just take anybody. And I think now there's a little bit more thought put into it in terms of making sure you're getting, people that are deserving, that are maybe just missed out of their region. You're getting high quality players. I think the process has really been refined so that it's right on point.
It's a more equitable experience. Like you said, it's not just taking anyone, but it's looking at who were the players who were close. And then also, you still have the ability to draft the players you want as a region chair. So it makes it so that if there are certain players within that Merc pool who make an effort to come to tournaments in your region, you have the option to put them on your team by drafting them through the mercenary process. So I think it's a fair way to do it. So all that stuff is live. Also in this issue, the April issue of Masters Minutes, we cover some of the restaurants that are near the Atlantis Casino. So we cover on some of the food choices. So take a look at that. We'll be looking at, as we get into May, June, we'll be taking a look at some more elements of Masters. We'll be previewing some of the prize support. We're developing a bespoke Discord server for all things Masters, which will be released soon. And on that Discord, it will have all the logistical information. It will have chat rooms set up. So during the weekend when you're there for Masters, you can set up dinners or games or basically a social hub for connecting with everyone who's going to Masters. So that Discord server is on the home stretch and will be released soon. We also will be covering some of our special other stuff we have planned, swag bags, some of the prize support we'll preview. So that's basically what I've been up to community-wise post-Adepticon, which was awesome, was continuing to work on Masters. They had their April Jackalopes tournament in Reno, which went really well. And some of the Reno guys are out there this weekend at Lone Wolf for Texas, trying to get their final scores in. So with both myself, Brenton, and Kyle Timberlake not playing this year, that's 3 spots that are normally taken or open. So we actually have a lot of really great competition this year in that sort of 9 to 15 spot of players, especially since it's local to us, of those players who live in Reno who don't usually qualify or could go anyway if they did qualify. They now have a chance to qualify and actually play in Masters. So qualifying for Masters this year in the West has been very exciting.
I wonder how your Best of the Rest showing is going to be from Pacific Northwest and the West Coast. I mean, are you expecting a lot of folks
So that's one of our up in the air. So what I do say, if you are interested in going to Best of the Rest, please sign up. So check out the Masters Minute for April. The link in there to the sign up is there, because we honestly don't know. Usually Best of the Rest, the core sort of DNA of that tournament are from local or drivable distances, right? But since so many of us are running the tournament and we're a smaller region anyway, we're unsure how many local players we're going to draw for Best of the Rest. So then that means we're looking at the next closest regions, right? We're looking at Pacific Northwest. We're looking at Midwest. We're looking at South, right? Texas is not all that far. So are we going to...
I like how you skip Mountain. That's amazing.
Well, Mountain 2, obviously, right? We're looking at those guys.
No, they're just a space in between the West Coast and the Midwest. They don't count.
I feel if we get, I mean, obviously we want it to be as big as possible, right? But we're hoping for that, 20 players or so. If we have that, we'd be really happy. But what we're trying to do as far as Best of the Rest, it's going to be running the same scenarios as Masters, just one less game. It's going to have the same quality of terrain. It's going to have similar prize support quality. So we really want people playing in Best of the Rest to feel as if they are playing in Masters. So it's Best of the Rest. It's an open event, but we're trying to make everyone there that weekend feel like we're all in the same tournament, right? We're all part of the same community, playing in the same tournament. That's the goal anyway.
And of course, you'll still grace the Best of the Rest tables with your presence, won't you, Jeremy? You'll glide down there at some point, handing out, blessings.
I'm already working on my costume changes. I have one outfit I got to go rent from a store. And I will be doing the streaming with Matt Carmack. He's going to be coming in from Texas, and we're going to be doing streaming, which is going to include, we're trying to set up a Friday night from Masters, which is going to be like our red carpet event. As people come in, we'll be doing interviews, list reviews. We're going to try to expand the streaming coverage this year. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be an awesome event. We're really excited. Prizes are looking great. The mastermind, Scott Holcomb, is helping us develop all that. So everything is on pace to have an awesome event. What about you, Rob? What are you up to post Adepticon?
One of the things I've been enjoying is listening to the various podcasts that were at Adepticon, even outside of Mantic, and just hearing them talk about the new venue and their experience with Milwaukee. Great episode from Independent Characters. I like those guys. They have a lot of common sense, and they don't have a lot of the that sometimes you get with some of the bigger games. So yeah, that's been fun. Kings of Memphis 5 is around the corner. It's June 21st, 22nd. It's 2020 points. So that's 2,020 points. We have a free bard character. We have command eyes, yes. Withdraw and allies, no. Registration's open. We're at around 20 players right now. I would expect by the time you're listening to this, we'll be up to 25, 26 players. And we have a lot of names you'll have heard. The Kyle Pools, the Nathan Clevengers, the Keith Randalls, they'll all be there, plus a lot of new players because it is very new player friendly. So if you have questions about it or concerns or where do you stay, just reach out to me on Facebook. I'm happy to help you with that. I will put a link to the registration and the player pack in the show notes. The shop has been jumping lately. I was there last night. They have 56 players signed up for their 40K slow grow. 56 players. It was insane. It was and probably like 35 of them were there last night. It was insane. So insane that I got to jump on the train and meet some new people. So I've started to build a 40K army, and I'm just sort of meeting new players. And first time I played a demo of Spearhead with somebody, just random. They had a demo night, and I went up there and just played a game. And I met a guy. He's like, "Oh, I like Armada," and so now we've got another Armada player. So I'm following in Jeremy's footsteps. Going out, doing the Lord's work. Trying to bring in new people to the faithful.
Meet the people. Listen to what they have to say and then preach the sermon.
Correct.
We'll have to Pastor Rob.
Exactly. What's funny though is I'll be honest with you, I've been enjoying building these 40K models. They are expensive, but man, they are the best. I haven't built 40K in like maybe 25 years, and they're pretty sweet, right? I mean, they're pretty sweet. So I don't think it'll be something that I'm going to be jumping into the tournament scene or anything. I like the narrative that game offers. It's a lot of great backstory.
And like you said, Rob, you go where the players are, right? And I think in being open to experimenting with other games is a key to growing those connections.
Yeah, I'm going to paraphrase. What Jeremy's saying is if you have a girlfriend, go try another girlfriend, and then that'll make you appreciate your old girlfriend better.
Only with permission.
So yeah, it's been crazy, the shop. In fact, something happened last night that I've been at this for a long time. It's never happened before. I went in, I'm playing a game with Andy, and I look over and there's these two people playing Halo that I've never met before. I have never seen someone playing a Mantic game, any Mantic game in the store that I didn't already know. Even if I didn't introduce them to it, like I knew who they are. These are two random people. I think that's probably a good sign that Halo is really catching on with a group of people that aren't in Mantic's sphere of influence. And one other thing that I saw at the shop last night that made me think, okay, this is maybe a cautionary tale. Our shop is dumping Conquest for the second time in like 4 years. So they get a big group of people, they buy into it, play it hard, and then they just disperse and it just abruptly ends. And so Mike ends up having to dump everything at 50% off. I'm just thinking like, okay, is there something I can learn or we can learn as it would apply to Kings of War? So I'm thinking about that. Maybe there's a show topic in the future. Just, how do we avoid the burnout maybe?
Well, I think the interesting thing would be you'd interview the players that disperse, right? Like what makes them give up? Because obviously, like the at face value, it must be something in the game. There mustn't be enough variety, or there mustn't be something.
One of my ideas is that I think they bought into the game thinking the community was maybe more resilient, maybe was more robust. When it actually got together, they realized there wasn't as many people playing the game consistently as they thought, maybe, and it just sort of weaned away. But you have a great point. I probably need to reach out to some of those folks that were playing and find out what happened. Because, like I said, there may be something we can learn.
Yeah, what I've noticed at the Caboose, because the Caboose is having that same problem, loose Caboose, or I don't say problem, but, of having 3 or 4 tables every game night of Conquest, and now it's down to 1. I think that the marketing and beauty of that game really draws people in, so I think it has a really great shelf appeal. But I think it very much is a lifestyle game, right? It is a game that is very complex, or more complex than the list building army design. And it's one where people try to build the hardest stuff. And then when they do balance changes, they're not soft-handed with their balance changes. So I think some people who got into that game who are maybe playing something else, Conquest is a difficult game to have as a side game and stay competitive if you're not following all the changes. And then when the changes come out, swapping your units out to what's better. It very much has that sort of, quote, lifestyle feel to it. And I don't know if people want to make that their primary lifestyle game. Maybe they're picking it up to try something new and different, and then they find that to stay competitive, it's too much work or effort, so they move on to other things, or they find that the community isn't as robust or big or as they would hope to be. But it definitely seems to have sort of a very cyclical up and down vibe to it.
So Little Wars TV, which is a wargaming podcast geared towards historicals, has done a lot of interviews and discussions about War Master recently. And on one of their most recent episodes, they talked to a GW employee. And it was very illuminating for him to share how important recruitment is, rather than actually keeping people at the table. Like once you're there, you bought stuff, like they're moving on to the next bunch. So I'll put a link to it in the show notes. It's a really interesting, a couple episodes. They had one with Rick Priestley. He was talking about War Master, and there's some discussion of, well, why did that fail financially? And you did hear on when I brought it up with Ronnie in our episode at Adepticon, he said, yeah, commercially it was a terrible failure. And then, like I said, there's an ex Games Workshop employee, a retail Games Workshop employee, and he gives a little insight inside those Warhammer stores, and it's super interesting. But there's a lot of variables here at play, and it would be interesting for us to do another deep dive.
They must go through a lot of Kool-Aid.
They probably do. Yeah. But on the flip side, he brought up a good point. Those guys can tell when you walk in the door if they even should waste their time. Like, they already know when Matt walks in, he's like, I'm just here to buy Devlin Mud. So it's like, okay, in terms of community, that's it. The store's been banging. How about you, Matt?
Well, for me, got a small one-day tournament tomorrow, Kings and Heroes at the Anzac Cup, which is an Australian Defence Wargaming convention.
Is that like a cricket stadium or something?
No. So Anzac stands for Australian New Zealand Army Corps. So that's, just a name that's been around since the World Wars, I guess. And yeah, so they've the Defence run their own wargaming tourney in our local area, and this is the first time we've held some Kings at it. So I think we'll only have about 10 people, but it'll be a good opportunity to get some other eyes on the game that we haven't been exposed to before. I submitted my list, and then I thought I had the models and realised I actually did not. I'm madly painting another regiment of lancers and a winged muster captain in the next 24 hours. So yeah, because I'm taking an all-mounted halflings list. So that's going to be nice. And what else have we got? We've got lots of tourneys coming up through Australia. There's all around the country, a couple of 2-day events, and Direct Misfire. I'm not sure if they even podcast anymore, Rob, but they're going to be running a narrative event later in the year down in Victoria. So everyone should jump on the Kings of War Australia page and check out the tourneys local to your area, as well as some of the details around things like that, because we haven't had a big narrative event for a while. So that will hopefully be some good fun. And so why don't we roll straight into our hobby updates? Jeremy, have you made it past your first elemental yet with the level of detail that you're going to?
Yeah, I'm almost finished with the first horde, so it's coming along pretty good. I found that the once I got past the first one, the second one was quicker than the first one. The third one was quicker than the second one of learning that technique. Like the more you do it, the faster you get at it. So that unit's coming along pretty good. I went back in on my Snow Troll Prime and added a little bit of orange to his blue loincloth. So like half is orange, half is blue. So what I'm thinking as sort of the Northern Alliance army evolves, going for like a white, cream, orange, blue, gold, silver color scheme. So kind of with maybe some neutrals for like leathers and stuff like that. So the color scheme is starting to come together in my mind as I'm getting through the first couple of units. The next thing I'm going to do once the Horde of Ice Elementals is done, I'm using a Tree Herder as Harem. So I think I may either work on that guy or I may start on my Frost Claws. And then I also ordered for my Naiads, I'm going to be doing a conversion. So I ordered some Naiads, some extra of the Berserking half elves, and then I also got some actual Mantic spear elves. So for my Naiad horde, since the theme of the army is ice elves, I'm going to do my horde of Naiads as just regular elves with spears. So I'm excited to do that. It's going to be my first sort of major Mantic conversion, you know what I mean, where it's a counts as unit, but it's 100% Mantic. So I'm excited to see how that's going to evolve. Really super stoked for champions. I pre-ordered everything from the Loose Caboose and is going to be doing a league. And then also we have a hobby day coming up at the end of April. So I'm going to be kind of putting everything together at that hobby day. But I'm really excited for that, champions. And I'm also starting to think about, talked a little bit about it on the live stream. And then I've also actually shot some of my ideas over to Rob Berman of thinking about what a champions tournament might look like, or an organized event, taking some elements from collectible card gaming, since in many ways champions is like it's a pre-constructed deck, right? You buy the army, it's pre-constructed, the games are quick. So I'm thinking a style for an event being like a best 2 out of 3, where each player has multiple companies and there's some sort of mechanic in the roll-off to where your opponent picks which company they're playing in the first game. You then pick which company you're playing in the first game. And then in the second game, you can't play the same company you played in the first game. You have to play one of the companies that's in your sideboard. So I'm just starting to think about, is there something there for like kind of like a cool style of organized event for champions that's around having multiple companies and you're deciding which one you want to use based on who you're playing. And so I kind of starting to percolate some ideas there in regards to seeing, can champions be moved into a competitive or more organized, or does it just need to live in that completely demo for new players, right? Which is totally fine. If that's where it should exist, I'm totally happy. I'm just thinking, is there spaces for it to exist in other avenues?
And for me, I also went all in on champions. So, got the all in package. One of our local Pathfinders did a big order for a bunch of locals, which was nice. I'm just trying to get there, as I mentioned in the previous section, trying to get this regiment of lancers done with the wing muster captain. So I'm running through that even now. And I think today I have downloaded and I'll be looking at the new Mantic Dragon, which
Oh my God!
24-month
What
reward.
we're going to talk about that at length, but what an exciting thing just come out of nowhere. We'll talk about that. That's amazing. Like probably the best thing to come out of the vault.
Yeah, I agree, and we'll come back to that. And so that's basically me in terms of hobby. What about yourself, Robert?
Man, last weekend I spent 2 straight days of cleaning the garage, and I would say I'm about 80% there. But I got enough space now. I got room for activities. So terrain is now in effect. So terrain's well underway. I've started a graveyard table. Thanks to everybody. I put a poll up and just said, hey, here's 3 or 4 different ideas I had. Which one should I do? And they voted for a graveyard table. So I've started working on that. I'm still working on the table for Chase, which if you haven't listened to those episodes, I'll just summarize. It's basically a table for abyssal dwarves that have taken over an old dwarven mountain fortification. And so it's like this dwarven mountain fort that's pockmarked and blown up and chipped and battle damaged. And, there's ruined siege equipment. So really cool on that. So I've started those 2. They will both be ready to go at Kings of Memphis, so only a couple months away. Like Jeremy and Matt, I'm fired up for Champions. So I have pre-ordered the 2-player starter. I'm going to do the Basilean, and I got the Nia Pre-Mat coming. And I think I will definitely buy additional boxes down the road, but I am trying to limit adding to my pile. I want more to come off the pile of opportunity than to be put back. So I'm trying to make it a net reduction this year. So we'll see how that works. And we're also getting ready to start an Armada League. We'll be playing once a month, and I'm going to play Elves. I have a bunch of different boats sitting there. That was the one. And then Aubrey said she wants to play in Twilightkin, so we're going to do that. I've got Halo to paint, right? And then I've mentioned I've started to build 40K. And Jeremy, I don't half-ass anything. So it's like all in, right? So it's here to go. Here we go. Our 3D printed resin bases. Mike printed them out for me. I've got them cleaning. I'm getting them all set to go. I'm going to paint all the bases. I've been assembling models. GW's instructions leave everybody else's instructions in the dust. Understandably so. They have the money and the resources to make it happen. But it's still a pleasure to do that. So, maybe we should touch on the hobby commitments and see how we're doing. As I mentioned last time, I have finished my BCP army. I have now finished 250 points for Armada. I still have 2 more flyers to paint. I've never used flyers, so that's why I'm kind of like procrastinating a little bit, but I will get that. And then I think once the terrain's finished, I'm going to be painting Champions and maybe Halo and Armada. And then it's time to turn my attention to Night Stalkers. While I was at Adepticon, I picked up, Jeremy, some of the Night Stalker stuff for Firefight, and I'm going to use it in Kings of War. Like some of the butchers that have the big hammers and stuff, they just look so cool, dude. They look so cool.
Awesome. Can't wait to see that.
Yeah, so I'm going to do that. And I have GCPS waiting in the wings as well for Firefight. And I'm just, man, every couple months they come out with new stuff. And I feel like I don't want to start because I don't know, like I'm going to paint something and then it's going to be obsolete by something much cooler. It's a struggle.
We'll comment on what you said about the, I'm not doing 40K, but as the Conquest League at Loose Caboose has sort of dissipated and dwindled, they have an AOS Spearhead League starting. So I did pick up the Lumineth Realm Lords Spearhead box. So I've started to kind of put that together. I think I'm going to, if I do paint those, it's going to be Contrast Plus.
I'll just say Slap Chop.
Yeah, Slap Chop. It's going to be just like how my Forge Fathers for Firefighter Slap Chop, make my side games be a little bit more quick to
Have you played Spearhead yet?
No, I haven't, but I have watched some battle reports, and this is what I'll say, and I always preface this with Kings of War is my special lady. It's my big love. If I could only play Kings of War all the time, every day, I would be a happy little camper, but it's just not our reality. So we need to find a way to get these new players. But I have watched a lot of video battle reports of the 4th edition of Age of Sigmar, and I will say the last time I played Age of Sigmar was when it first came out, and it is a completely different game than what it was. And this edition, some of the AOS players are complaining because they say it's not as exciting and it's too balanced and not as wacky. And to me, that's what I love in a game.
Until the next army release.
Exactly. But I'm sort of dipping my toes in it like you are, Rob, is just continuing to try to find ways to meet players and meet people and, get them onto Mantic games and So that's sort of what I'm looking at, is trying to get that spearhead for the Realm Lords.
I played a demo of Spearhead, and I had a good time. It's on a little map, like 30 by 22, and I played Skaven against, what are they called? Aurochs? I don't know what they're called. They're Orcs. They have some other funny name. The way the scenario was set up was, it was like diagonally, and I did like their mat. They have a little custom mat that has all the objectives printed on the thing with a line down the middle to make it easy for setup. I thought that was great. We had someone comment on like, oh no, another bespoke size mat for table size for champions. And while I understand their disappointment, like, there's nothing that exists that would really work for what you could do with what they wanted to do with champions, right? The spearhead size is way too small. Not enough room to move a bunch of units around. Certainly not ranked and flanked units. And then if you wanted to play on the ambush size map, though, that's like too deep, right? And it would take a long time for you to get into combat. So
I don't know, buy one mat. I mean, how much is their neoprene mat, really?
I don't know, $50 maybe. I don't know.
Come on. It's like, just buy the mat. I mean, sometimes it's
or
like,
don't buy the mat. Just buy the 2-player starter or the book with the token set, and you should play on the paper mat.
it's just like, people complain about stuff that's just like, come on, man.
Yeah, and like there'll be the tin bloody people wearing their tin hats on their head going, oh, it's all about selling the mats. Pretty sure they're not making big profits on selling like 10 mats for champions. The whole idea, when you listen to the chat with Rob Berman, is getting it on your dining table. That's what they wanted. But still, like you said, Rob, have enough room to actually move units for a rank and flank game. So, yeah, no, it's just, don't wind me up. Don't wind me up.
Don't wind him up. Don't. Yeah, Jeremy, what Mike did at the shop is he built every spearhead, and he has every spearhead available for people to use.
Oh, that's cool. So if they can try them out.
I was going to do a demo. He's like, well, which one do you want to play? There's a whole table. He's working on top secret stuff, but he's working on becoming a Magic Premier event center.
Oh, interesting.
Going to be. He's already got the Star Wars Unlimited thing, but he's trying to expand a little bit. So he's got big plans for this year. So
that's
I'm
awesome,
excited.
man.
I'm excited to be on the journey with him. So, Matt, you're having to go back to the halflings, but you don't need to pay any more halflings for the challenge.
I know. By the time I get these 2 units done, I think I set another 500 points of halflings, and I'll be up to about 1,000. So I've got 2 hordes. I said 2,300 abyss. I've got 2 hordes of lower abyssals commenced. I'm still not entirely sure on the paint scheme with them, but I think once I get them on the base, I might be a little bit happier with what I've picked. And of course, my firefight's done, and then 1,000 points of another Kings of War army. I'm still pretty comfortable where I'm at. I haven't started that other 1,000 points, but I'm not worried at this stage. I think I'll be all right.
I wanted to bring up to Jeremy because Jeremy spent all that time last year setting up his workstation. I blinged out my airbrush station.
Ooh, nice.
It's a metal cart with like pegboard on the side. So literally I can roll it over to my desk. It's got the compressor sitting on top. All the airbrushes are mounted. All the paints are in a drawer. Now I'm going to have some fun. Because before it was like, it was a hassle. Now it's like, nope, just wheel the cart over and get to work. We would be remiss if we didn't ask Jeremy about his hobby challenge.
Well, you guys can all suck it because I took the Twilight Kin to the Twilight Kin to the pairings event at Adepticon.
Great, you got last year's commitments done. How about this year's?
Yeah, so I have to say that I took that to the pairings
Aren't these
event.
the Twilight Kin that were broken by updates?
Well, I'm going to tell you what happened. So in the pairings in the pairings tournament, how it worked is each round you got paired with a random partner, and all of the command orders could be used across faction. So it was definitely a very wonky tournament. And what I realized was playing with Night Stalkers in the final round, that a regiment of mutants with Vicious who can get ferocious charged, it's really good.
Good.
My butt just clenched.
20 attacks on 2s with Elite with a Strider, TC2 with Vicious, and they were just, oh man, they were like defense 6. It didn't matter. They were doing 18 damage. So basically, and I played that last round with Adam Ballard, which I guess if you're going to have a teammate, you want a former U.S. Master as a teammate. And he's like, my goal in this game, Jeremy, is to make sure we roll enough command points to give mutants ferocious charge every round. So definitely had a lot going for it. But cool to get those guys on the battlefield for an event, and now they're back in the figure case, for which they will stay.
Well, until you pop them off their base for champions.
Exactly, because I think the Twilight Kin company, I believe, has a regiment of Impalers, and I have those already done. So I think that those are going to get popped off for the so the Twilight Kin company I should get done pretty quick.
I thought you might just wait for them to be broken in fourth and then go back to them.
Nah. I will say I took to Adepticon Felix's Northern Alliance, but it was the list that I've been playtesting on UB, so I'd had a bunch of games with it, and it was so awesome to actually play a list that I've been working on in a tournament. So shout out again to Felix. And I have to say, I'm a big Northern Alliance. I was a Northern Alliance fan before, but now I am a super fan. They're such an interesting faction. So many different builds you can do. Lots of different choices. I love the theme that I'm working on. So I am super committed to the Northern Alliance. So I'm about done with my Horde of Ice Elementals. Snow Troll Prime is done. After the Horde of Ice Elementals, I'm going to do something fun. So that's why I think I'm probably going to do my Tree Herder, or maybe I'll do a unit of the Frost Claws. And then I'll go back, finish up another Ice Elementals, or start working on that Horde. So the goal is still to have them ready by September, October, which is Bay of Kings, which is a 2,000 point tournament. So it's a little less, but I've been painting every night. That's been my big takeaway from Adepticon, is it has me so jacked up to do hobby that I've been getting a good 2 to 3 hours of paint in every night, or every other night, pretty consistently. So I'm feeling a little bit more confident that I'm going to make my goals this year.
You could knock me over with a feather, Rob.
I didn't expect that.
No, I think we're going to do it this year. That's the goal. We're going to do it. And then I'll get a shirt, a special shirt made, a hobby challenge shirt that says "Sucking It in Panathor since 2025" or something like that. For all you doubters, you haters.
I just can't wait to see what the imagery that goes with that is on the shirt.
Yeah. And it was cool, Rob. I really like that we were really able to kind of talk about what the play in Panathor means at Adepticon. So I think that's a cool, adding that to our not only play Kings of War, play more Kings of War, is let's all play in Panathor. That's been a cool movement.
You know, for me, back into 40K, it does rub off on Kings of War for me. Because like in that community, they're hardcore. They're like, I'm an Imperial Fist. You know, I'm a Salamander. I'm a Tyrannid. It means something. And I think there's an opportunity for us to really invest more than we have collectively.
And we were talking about there might be some opportunities for our language around that, because, I mean, we're not doing as really, the firefight content's kind of happening elsewhere now, so we are mostly sticking to Kings, aren't we?
Matt, we may have to outsource it to some people that can get the job done.
You never know.
But shout out again to the Controlled Fire guys. I've been catching up with that podcast. Good show.
Well edited, which is like a pet peeve of mine. I hate shows that like go off on tangents all the time and they don't rein it in and they don't edit. I'm just like,
No, super knowledgeable group of guys, very well put together. And I did at Adepticon, we did talk about getting back on the firefight train for us. We're thinking about getting a Plague army review done with myself, Tyler, Adam Ballard, who plays Plague, and Kyle obviously is RC. But it's on our to-do list, Rob. It's just, as you say, there's too many games and not enough time in the day to do them all.
well, that's why you just let them record it and then you can just edit it. You don't even have to be on the show.
Yeah, and that's a good idea too.
Well, with that, let's take a quick commercial break. On the side, we will get into feedback and engagement. We will be right back.
I'm Andy from Mantic Games, and you're listening to Countercharge.
Welcome to Countercharge. Just as a reminder, give us feedback wherever you listen to the podcast. All right, next, let's get into some of your comments. So on Spotify for episode 772, which is the episode with Ronnie and company, Dan McCauley said, enjoyed the episode, and RD Tabletop Studio said, cool episode, thanks. We thank you for your comment. All right, and then over on Podbean, Matt, we always have time for someone to bust Jeremy's balls, right? So we have Josh Sci-Fi Porkchop, who said on episode 768, great interview, sounds exciting. Pet peeve, is it riff on a topic or is it an inside joke? Well, I think it's an inside joke. And then he followed up with another comment on 773, which is our Kings of War Champions live stream. He said, almost got through the full episode with no rifting. Dang it. LOL.
Little do you guys know, I've always known it's riffing and not rifting, and I've been saying rifting for so many years in a long con to see how long it would take for you people to notice.
And your effort is why they're called Rift Forge Orcs. Let's just be honest. And then Ian Kane just mentioned on 771, which is the awesome episode with Radek Bry. Love that episode. Love the positive energy from Radek. It feels like he'd be a great person to get beaten by. 100%. He's awesome. And then on the Kings of War forum, just a shout out that a lot of great discussion happening there. And we'll include a link to the Kings of War forum to share our podcast thread. A lot of great discussion happening there. And so if you want to talk about things a little bit more deeper, that's the place to go. So with that, let's jump into Mantic news. Obviously we've been talking about Champions. This is right around the corner. It's going to ship starting on the 14th. I don't know how old this news is, guys, but I know they updated the Mantic Points program. So we got a bunch of new 3D printed models that are pretty awesome. Finally have a Harbinger, which is great. But then there's like a Macedon and a Thule Mythican, and they got some Walking Dead stuff. And there's a, what's that? Is that Garrick Heavyhand? Who is that?
Yeah, I think that is Garrick. The news isn't, it's not that old. It's certainly since we last did the show. They don't have any way that automatically collects them digitally if you buy direct, do you? That's kind of a frustrating thing for me. I'm like, I know some people do, but are we still in 1990 where we should be having to cut the cardboard boxes out and save them? Like, that's the frustrating thing for me is I'm like, I don't buy cereal boxes anymore. Like, come on.
I'm just glad that they've refreshed it and we've got some new options and there's some new cool models that I don't already own, which is going to be awesome. And then in terms of Magic Vault, we're obviously not close enough to May. But Matt, you want to talk about today?
So today for the true believers, the 24-month reward was revealed. They hadn't really until recently firmly committed that there would be one. But today, Clive revealed a custom-built Vampire Lord on Dragon that is reportedly 24 centimeters from nose to tail tip. Just looks like a little bit of art. It looks quite nice. At first, I actually had trouble seeing the vampire on the dragon because the dragon's got quite a bit of detail. But it is like just blending into near the neck of the dragon there. I think they've knocked this one out of the park. Now there was a announcement about like 50% off previous packs, so you could also access this. I'm not sure if that means that if you buy every month before. I didn't read into the detail on that. Did you see that, Rob?
All I saw was a big dragon, and I know I've been a subscriber since the beginning, so I already downloaded it. I've already talked to Mike. Hey, can I get this in the queue? I haven't played Undead in a long time, but I think I might dive back in because it's so freaking cool. I mean, it's a giant dragon. Between this and the champion heroes that they've come out with.
No, this looks great. This to me looks like they commissioned an STL, right? Because this is straight up, you could tell just by the style of the model that it was designed specifically to be printed. So I think that's a great idea for them to look into. And we've often talked, Rob, about maybe one day they release a faction or a unit that's through the STL. So maybe this is like a nice little test.
So someone asked Clive about that on the thread and said, like, are you going to be doing more of this? And his reply was, this is the first, not the last.
Yeah, see, that's exactly. So that makes sense to me, is maybe they start doing a little bit more with their toes in the custom STL.
Well, they're going to run out of stuff, right? They can't be that far of running out of stuff that's like previously been in STL form for when they were either 3D printing for their molds or something else. Like they've done a lot of their resin line already in the vault, so they must be close to having to throw a bit of money at STL design, surely.
And this is the best way that I can think of to quickly fill those gaps in. Where's my Commandant? All right, well, with that, we'll take another quick commercial break. On the other side, we will come back and share your comments for our topic of the month. We'll be right back.
This is Bryce Clark, Internet Hero, and you're listening to Countercharge Podcast.
All right, and welcome back. And so let's get into our topic of the month and your answers to that question. And so our question was, clean rule set or army flavor, can one exist without the other? Now, I haven't looked at these properly yet, Jeremy, but I think we did have people probably having a bit of problem with reading again, but let's just see how we go. And straight up, yeah, we'll kick straight into it with General Gaddafi. Ideally both. I would argue that Twilight King and Halflings are steps in the right direction.
In that, I'm guessing he feels those armies, which I think there's some value there, right? That they're flavorful and clean rules together.
I think so, and I think part of this comes up, though, is because some people who really love the cleanliness would probably hold armies like that up as it getting a little bit too complex, don't you think?
Well, I mean, it's not so much what do I think, it's people have said that, right? When I think
Correct.
those are two great armies.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Again, I think we're going to see a lot on this. I always like to use the slider metaphor, and that there's going to be different people along that slider, right, on what they want out of a game. As Rob says, everyone for a game for everyone. That I like. I think you and I are a little bit more. We're like on the not like ghost pepper spice, but we're like, I want a little spice to add to flavor, not to see how much spice I can take before my eyes fall out of my face. But I think you and I want a little spice in our dish. Has always been my sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that I think that little bit of spice is necessary for growth of the game.
Okay, so next we have Dave Fanning. Neither are mutually exclusive. However, a player can add immersion through their own hobby. The terrain on the table and the story are background for their armies and the campaign they play in. We are dependent on Mantic providing a clean rule set for us to enjoy. I do hope we see a reduction in gotcha and silly niche units with excessive special rules and combos. I'm looking at you, Restless Souls of Raya. I see Mantic using fourth to re-level the balance between the two. Hopefully we can get some additional flavor through modified unlock system instead of scattering living legend unit upgrades. I see what Dave is saying here, but I don't feel like we have a lot of niche units and excessive special rules and combos. But again, I'm err on the side of I like having a little bit of extra flavor. So maybe there, for some players, there is that feeling that there are too much of that seeping into the game, but that's not my sense. Dave goes on to say, also, it's not like we couldn't see the introduction of some flavor outside of the rule set. Introducing a few STL sculpts to represent living legends, great idea. Add variety in paint schemes within the rule book. For example, show the halflings from Edge in a different paint scheme. Shows Aaron Codwaller leading the muster. We could also use the rulebook to show paint schemes of various salamander clans. This is a fantastic idea because we see this a lot in other games, right? You'll have a faction, but depending on what city they're from or what lord they fight under, they'll have different iconography, color schemes, banners, flavor. That would be kind of an interesting space to see Kings get into a little bit more. You know, maybe there's different factions within the greater armies. But interesting idea.
Yeah, I totally I agree with that. And I think we're going to see this theme reflected a little bit of some people saying, oh, you can get your flavor elsewhere. But I think a lot of players want to see what an army or a unit or a character feels like in the fluff reflected in how it plays on the tabletop. Otherwise, then you get this big disconnect. And I think that was the real knock on Kings at the start, is that, you know, with the generic rules and not so many special rules, that every army felt a bit the same. So, I mean, at that time, it didn't have a lot of the supporting fluff that we have now, but I still think that knock would be the same if we had the fluff, but we're back at the start of third. Matt Selleck says, you can have both. The thought that you cannot is a personal limitation and resistance to change. Good reading of the question, Selleck.
Classic Kelly.
Yeah. Max K did. I don't know how famous is that GIF in the States. That's why not both from the.
I know, but it's used a couple times. I think Jats also uses it.
It's used all the time here because it was from a taco kit where it's a soft or hard shell taco ad.
Okay, next on the list we got John Paul Fuller Jackson. Obviously, we all want both, otherwise we would be playing chess or checkers. That said, there's good ways to introduce immersive flavor without rules devolving into a crunchy RPG that has been forcibly applied to an army-sized game. Already, Kings of War has a decent level of flavor. To the outside audience coming from more crazy games, it can seem that all the units are similar or identical, but plenty of Kings of War veterans will heartily argue that minor points of difference between units like Immortal Guard, Abyssal Guard, or the various types of heavy cavalry units, Soul Reaver cavalry versus Sons of Korrigan, are different, I think he's trying to say. That said, Kings of War can benefit from more flavor, yes, but how might require some imaginative innovation of the current rules. Some things are perhaps too rigid. Certain classes of units are locked into certain stat limits. On the one hand, this makes things easier to understand, but on the other hand, it can fall into banality that some critics would apply to Kings of War. Why can't some special infantry have nerve of 1720? Or some berserker unit that's extra fragile have 30 attacks? Perhaps in the pursuit of balance and viability, most units fall into safe limits. When a unit only has stats of difference to differentiate itself from other units, then stats need to tell the story. Outside of rules, I would love some flavor text like at the bottom of a Magic the Gathering card with each unit profile, if only to let a new person know what the difference between Luggets and Rabble. Nice, really well thought out. Great comment, John Paul.
We had to add 5 minutes to the show, but it was a really good comment. I agree.
I'm just glad I got through it in one take. Just call me One Take Duval. So
Yeah, Rob would have taken 11. I think he makes a really good point. I totally agree that over time there's been too much safety in the stat line. You know, that a large infantry horde's a large infantry horde is a large infantry horde. There's a little bit of that. And that's the kind of thing we want to see for however it feels in the fluff or in the flavor. You know, the stat line and the special rule mix should reflect that on the table. And I think getting a bit more creative with the stat line, I know that they don't in order to kind of generally stick to their formula, but I think that would be a massive step in the right direction.
All right, next up we have Mike Rossi. I believe it's possible to have both. The clean rule set removes a major barrier to entry for some players by eliminating confusing special rules, weird rules, interactions, or clumsy wording. All of these things contribute to the argument phase of other rule sets. GW Warhammer comes to mind. Immersive world, army, and unit backgrounds with interesting stories or cool descriptions make people excited to play a given faction. They provide hobby motivation and keep players engaged with the game as the greater story unfolds. You can certainly have both because good world building or unit lore doesn't have to rely on a unit stat block. Take GW Space Marines as an example. The basic unit entry for a Space Marine is pretty standard across chapters, but each of the various chapters have their own unique background and army feel. Give the Marines some wolf tassels, a bunch of close combat weapons, and a cool background, and you have Space Wolves. Every unit is described within the lens of the greater world and army lore, so they all feel unique. Give the Marines a bunch of monk outfits, a couple extra land speeders, and voila, you have a Dark Angel. Again, each of their units, even though they are mostly the same stat block, feel very different from a lore perspective. In my opinion, because King's models are either non-existent or look generic, they're missing out on this opportunity. The newer army releases, the Halflings and the Twilight Kin, really show that Mantic is going in the right direction, but with almost 30 factions to play, it'll take them 10 years to update all the armies at this current pace. In a lot of ways, a good game keeps me engaged on the table with a clean rule set and keeps me engaged off the table with cool lore. Lot to unpack there, but I like that. I like his comment very much.
yeah, well thought out. Rossi always has great ideas.
Speak of the devil, next up is Adrian Scott. Hey, I'll try to keep my reply short this time. That's what he says. For me, it's about 80% flavour, 20% rules. I can forgive a flawed rule set, but if the game's lore and overall feel doesn't draw me in, I have no interest in getting into it. To take a Mantic-specific example, I have no interest in playing Halo Flashpoint because I've never been into the IP, but Dead Zone, which has the same rules, is a game I'd love to get back into, and that's entirely because I love the Warpath lore.
That's a great comment from Adrian. And in fact, it's funny because I am the opposite. Like Dead Zone really wasn't compelling to me from a lore perspective. Maybe because I didn't take the time to really invest in it. But Halo, I like Halo, right? I love the TV show. I've played the video games over the years, not in a long time, but it's been fun to dive back in and push Spartans around the table. Next up, we got Mark Zielinski. He says both. I think lore transports you into the game, and the rules let you actually play it out on the tabletop. That being said, if I have to pick one, did you not listen to Matt Selleck? He says you don't have to pick one. That's a personal limitation. That being said, if I have to pick one, then I have to go with the clean rule set. Actually playing the game is the end goal. Next, we have Scorpion Vermin. They aren't mutually exclusive. The immersive flavor comes from the lore and exists separate from the rules. If you try to introduce lots of unique rules into the game, you risk over-seasoning your broth and leaving people salty. Oh my gosh, Jeremy.
I always love a broth, stew, a cooking metaphor. Next, we have Nathan Arnold. It's better to have good rules first and add flavor that doesn't break the balance of the game. So that's interesting. Maybe starting with the core rules and then thinking about how do we add, like, get your basic ingredients first and then think about how you want to add the flavor after the effect.
Yeah, what's the base of your broth, Jeremy?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you create that initial flavor?
The flavor explosion, you
Exactly.
you gotta
Chopped carrots, diced onions, sauteed off.
a bouillon cube, perhaps.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Next up is, I think Rob's about to die. Next up, we've got John Croyle Hogg. Clean rules should be the number one goal. Balanced and somewhat varied factions, number two. Immersive flavour is a negative for me. I prefer elegant factions to be able to learn each other's factions units without putting a lot of work into it. Ranks and flanks games shine, stay fresh with terrain scenarios and asymmetric opposing armies. You don't need many detailed differences to pull that off. If the game doesn't stay fresh, keep developing the terrain, possibly adding some simple weather factors or hybrid hill forest pieces as examples, scenarios, tapping all the great ideas brewing out of the GTs, all the clean rules. For instance, when RC added the hill bonuses or future rules that allow some new maneuvers in the melee grind. As an aid to the Panathor fiction effort, I've suggested designated ephemeral heroes, monsters, and sometimes units as a way of providing some refreshment without disrupting existing armies. Although it can disrupt balance if they're not done properly, I would say. That's not from John, that's from me.
Or if they're not appropriate restrictions on them.
He also mentions asymmetric opposing armies, which, certainly doesn't exist at the moment, I would say.
It's not dissimilar from what you said before, right? If we take that example of a large infantry horde, asymmetrically, they should be different, right? There's no reason that they have to have 18 attacks 8 on 3s.
Yeah, like I can see that they want them in the same wheelhouse, right? That, a horde should have higher attacks, but like, why not play with that scale a little bit more? Kind of like what they've done with the Sisters Rampage special rule in Basalia. Rampage 10 pushes it from a 30 to a 40, which maybe it's too much. Like maybe they haven't knocked somewhere else off, but like it gives you that variety, which I think helps feel flavorful.
When we think about the different categories, like large infantry, for example, we're always thinking about like the size of the model and how tall it is. But sometimes we forget the size of the base, right? And I'm wondering how much influence Champions is going to have on 4th edition. Because in Champions, they don't have that demarcation. They don't have that division. Like this is large infantry, this is cavalry. They just say, here's the models you should use and here's the base size that you use. Because there's no height.
Jats has also commented why not have both GIF? And he said, good luck explaining that one. But, I think we've delved into that, famous ad.
So next on the list, we got my brother from another mother, Tom Annis. A great topic. I think the ideal is obviously both. But if I had to pick one, I'll take a clean rule set every time. A tight, internally consistent system gives players the tools to create immersive moments organically. The opposite isn't true. Flavor without clarity leads to frustrating, ambiguous gameplay that kills immersion anyway. That said, the best games, like Kings of War, at its best, use clean mechanics to support the flavor, not fight it. It's not about choosing between theme and clarity. It's about using one to elevate the other. Spoken by a true litigator who has had to write for most of his career. Very well written. Thank you, Tom. Great feedback. Good luck at Lone Wolf this weekend.
Nick Brooks says, I'd argue that if everyone is broken, then everyone is balanced against each other while still having tons of flavor. Kind of like fighting video games. Personally, I like simple to learn but difficult to master systems like Kings, but I'd be lying if I said every army across the board is super unique. I think you can have both flavor and a clean rules set by having universal keywords that we do know, but going over the top on themes and abilities for every single faction. Funny story about Nick. I don't know if I've shared this. The first time he was at Lone Wolf, he played my buddy, the store owner, Mike, and Mike had like an all phalanx, all ensnaring pike horde army from Kings of Men, and Nick had like a cavalry army, and it was plays into what he's saying here that sometimes you're the windshield and sometimes you're the bug.
Next up, we've got Terry Erickson. Flavor can be a huge draw to a game 100%. However, in my opinion, if the game isn't fun and or easy to learn, play and understand, it'll potentially ostracize potential players who haven't played TTWG. Like for me, I desperately wanted to play 40k because I got into the lore first, but then I started to learn how the game plays, but had found Kings about the same time. Seeing the two games played, Kings seemed to me to be more of what I wanted out of a game experience. It has been. I love this game. All of that said, the more I learn about Mantic lore from the podcast, the more I get excited about new armies. I'm a poor reader, unfortunately. I wish more Mantic novels were on Audible. Steps to Deliverance is awesome. I've lost track of how many times I've listened to it. I absolutely will build a Basilian army if and when Orion becomes a playable unit in King.
Yeah, it was awesome to meet Terry at Adepticon this year. And Jeremy, there was a lot of newer people to the community. Jeremy Kidd would be another that were at Adepticon, and it was really great to meet all those folks.
Yeah, it was nice to see some new faces and see us with those new faces at that 50-plus mark. So I think next year for Adepticon, the sky's the limit.
I mean, we got to get mad over here, don't we?
I really think if you're going to come to the United States for one event, Adepticon is the event to come for, because
Right?
it really is
I mean,
the mecca of miniature wargaming.
if you're short on time and you need to get to the vendor hall, don't worry. Jeremy will facilitate that for you by destroying your hopes and dreams on the table in like 10 minutes.
Question is will it be with his own army or will he have borrowed one?
Absolutely not. But here's the thing, Matt. If you come over here, I'll provide your army. So at least you're not losing with your own army.
True.
All right, next up, we got David Musgrave. He says both can work, provided the rule set behind it is strong and balanced enough to cover everything that you're adding as immersive flavor. The faction command dice have appeared to try to be a way of getting some of the latter, but don't think it worked, ? I certainly don't want only a narrative-driven set of lists, but the lore background is definitely going leaps and bounds from early on. Smaller scale games do have more scope for immersion into the world, which champions may bring initially, but would like a fairly generic progression campaign thing so you can world build within a rule set of generic guidelines. I mean, we sort of had that with Vanguard, but unfortunately Vanguard was a little clunky mechanically, and I think it probably dissuaded people from investing in building up those. What do they call those in Vanguard? No, they weren't companies. What were they? Bands? War bands or something? I don't know.
War bands. It was definitely war bands. Yeah.
And next up, we have Mr. Erasmus Berger. I'd say that representing source material in a game is fundamental to wargaming. At the very least, a wargame is representing warfare by definition. How to do it is a question that varies depending on the taste and preference of each wargamer. Again, Jeremy's going to the food analogy. It's coming.
I love it.
There is no right answer. There's just the best answer for the kind of wargamer that is being appealed to. I find it more immersive if a game is a flexible framework that can be used to represent a variety of things and then gets out of the way so that the play experience is more about what is being represented than the rules in the game. Kings of War can be quite technical and gamey, but the rules get out of the way. Having to pull out a rule book is terrible for immersion, no matter how flavorful the rule I'm looking up. Nothing gets me more disengaged from a game than not being able to keep track of all the special rules that my opponent is using. It's interesting because he's leaning more toward the rules themselves, breaking immersion. You know, one of the things that I've started to think about, I'm conscious now when the army I'm playing against is breaking my immersion. You know, like if there's a proxy army, for example.
I'm a strong proponent of counts as units can work, but like we always go back to that. I know it when I see it. It's got to make visual sense. And if it doesn't make visual sense, it's going to pull me out and call me an old curmudgeon. And I don't want to poo-poo on anyone's Cheerios. You know, I'm going through the greatest hits here, you know, but it's just got to make sense. And, you know, I don't necessarily think your Lego / cutout cardboard / whatever army is necessarily great for the hobby.
You want people to play
Heinrich von Schliemann.
Yeah.
Don't upset Heinrich Schliemann.
Jeremy, just a quick note though. I walked into Aubrey's room the other day and I said something to her and she goes, hey, don't poo on my hypothetical salad.
Oh, nice.
So that's like in her vernacular. Now I don't know if she's saying that publicly or just for me to make me smile, but I don't know.
One day we're going to have her on the show and be like, what was it like growing up as Rob's daughter?
I'm trying, but she doesn't want to do it. I've been trying.
Tell her we'll listen to some Bauhaus or some Cure. We'll go to the graveyard. We'll do the interview at the graveyard.
She's definitely emo.
Yeah.
This is a random thought. When me and her go somewhere, she'll play her music over the stereo. But like if her mom's in the car, no, she's not doing it. Busting out like very eclectic taste. Like, yes, she listens to all the things that teenage girls listen to, but then she'll bust out War Pigs. You know, it's like, wait a minute. I wasn't even born when that song came out. You know, and she's just rocking out. So
does she understand that if she did an episode, she wouldn't just have to hang out with you? She gets to hang out with cool people like me and Jeremy?
You know what I need to do? I need to say, hey, I won't even be on the show. I'll let her just do it all without me.
Yeah.
The problem is she'll probably all over me.
Exactly. That's why we want it. Yeah.
See, you call that I call that audio gold.
Yeah. Rob, I'll go back to your point around the proxy.
Yeah.
How about this as a thought? If there was more immersion in how they created the units, whether that be stat lines or special rules and that wouldn't be as possible because your elves or something wouldn't count as something else because they would feel too different. And I think that the fact that that does work so easily in Kings speaks to the more genericism of the units in the games, whereas you don't see people proxying non-halflings as halflings.
Foot soldier with spear, right? That's pretty easy to proxy. Whereas, an elf sunstalker, like what the hell is that? You know what I mean? That has a sun halberd.
Did you just make that up?
Yeah, that's a little bit harder to proxy.
That's some Heimlich type stuff right there, man.
Well, sometimes you got to pull it out of the tuchus.
All right, next up we've got Ian Kane. He says, I mostly make up the flavor in my own head, so give me a good rule set to hang my games on, and I'm happy. Having said that, I do think Mantic is making good progress on bringing its various universes to life. 100%. If you would have asked me back in 2010 when we're playing the beta rules, or even, up until before 2015 when the second issue came out, like there was no spice really in Mantica at that point. But they have really spent a lot of effort developing the fluff that's both in the game, in the various rule books and supplements, in addition to the novels. And I don't know, Jeremy, it's getting more and more immersive every day. And Champions is taking it another step forward.
That rule book's the nicest looking rule book that they've done to date, in my opinion. Very nice.
Next up, we have, I don't know if I've seen a comment from this gentleman before, Owen Rayrauer.
I wouldn't even try to slaughter his last name. I would have just said Owen.
If I've nailed that, glory to me. If I haven't, oh well, my show. Flavor brings people in, balance keeps people around. You obviously want both, which can be hard because they can be at loggerheads. As soon as I started reading that, all I had in my head was flavor brings the boys to the yard.
What does at loggerheads mean?
At an impasse, like on opposing sides.
Is that I've never heard that.
Well, it's like
before.
butting heads, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm.
Well, Paul Collins says, why would you want a clean rule set when you can have one covered in salty, twisty, flavored fingerprint goodness? Well,
I love Paul. Always brings the levity.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Idiot Proof Dalek. When I play Old World, I pine for a clean rule set. When I play Kings of War, I miss immersion, especially when playing versus people who just regard it as chess using squares and rectangles. I'd be happy with a bit more randomness in Cow and more balance and rules tightness in the Old World. I think the perfect mix of the two is possible.
Next up, we have Tom Freeman. He said, we shouldn't conflate clean with predictable. Chess is not a war game. War games need flavor because war is beset with unpredictability. Clean and easy to learn can be extremely flavorful too, as shown by Dead Zone, where every exploding 8 is a story. So too, Kings of War, where a dice tells a story. Well said, well articulated. I always kind of use that analogy of I don't want to play chess.
Just like it in the chess-like image.
Next, we got a comment from Mark Otley. Both. I reckon ditch the annoying, confusing change in format of stat lines with the circles and have clean row of numbers like in the companion, and add back some brief flavor text for each unit with the unit stats, same as in second edition. I note the Old World also uses this format for army lists, so the rules themselves are a mess, of course.
Next up, we have Chet Dudek. He says, flavor has the power to draw my attention, but only a clean rule set will keep it. I can't stand a game with messy, unbalanced rules, so I value rules over fluff. But with that being said, I think nothing kills a game for me like a failure to change. Evolution of the game keeps it fresh. Looking forward to 4th edition, hoping they switch to D8s or D10s. Interesting comments there.
Well, he'll be so happy when it comes out with D8s, won't he? No, that's just... Next up is Matthew Schenker. I think Mike Russey summarised it pretty well. Making armies feel unique in their style is easy to do while having a clean rule set. I will go one step further and say that impactful hero models, unique and powerful special characters, and army special rules add the final touches of what draws people most to other game systems. It wouldn't be difficult to add these elements to Kings. The newer factions all have pretty unique faction rules and looks. They are just missing those hero models that draw people to an army. No one wants to have their Dragon Lord charge a regiment of goblins, do 7 wounds, roll a 6 on a break check, and then get either flanked by minces and taken off the field or tied up over and over again. I don't mean make Hero Hammer, but let's actually have something better than having to take 3 Dwarf Lords on large beasts whose job is to just take charges and sit there all game. Ooh, I think there's some hurt in that comment, Rob.
100%.
I do agree. I think heroes for a long time have been lacking in Kings of War of being represented appropriately by their flavour. I think version 2 Mikael was the peak for me. That was really good. But I think, I struggle to connect a lot. So what I will say as well is that immersion of the heroes really only matters if you know the lore as well, right? So, you will only be immersed if you actually know the lore to know what it's meant to be representing on the table. But I do enjoy that comment.
Next up, we have Aaron Richardson. Now, he's a sci-fi guy based out of St. Louis. I met him and his son at Adepticon. And Matt, he made a game that's similar to Magic, but using Dead Zone lore, and had a full deck, and we played a game. It was really cool. Somebody was playing I don't know what they're called. Not Ratkin. What are they called in? The Veermen.
Oh, yeah.
He had like Veermen and Plague and GCPS and really awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
And the son, Henry, I think, is getting into Kings of War now. He's purchased a bunch of Empire of Death stuff, so hopefully we'll get to see him at an event in the near future. His comment, I don't think it's too much to ask for both. Look at Lorcana, the Disney-themed CCG. For instance, the game is pretty clean and simple to play. The individual abilities on the cards are all named after something related to the character and relate to the character's overall story. There are ways to do it so you can have your cake and eat it too. And the last comment, Kyle Poole says both, which I think we almost have. So I think he's right. I think we're moving in the right direction. We're still have a relatively clean rule set, not to say that 4th edition can't make some improvements on it. The last few armies that they've updated have really pushed the flavor.
You mentioned Kyle earlier in the show and talking about Kings of Memphis 5. Are you going to have a dress code for Kings of Memphis 5?
His wife threw out his footwear of choice because of my comment. So those are the things that I don't have.
Sway?
A bully pulpit. I have sway, just not over you. I have sway over your wives. So just heads up. She threw it out. And I think we're all grateful for that.
And I was thinking more about are you making shirts optional or...
Well, sleeves are certainly going to be optional with Kyle.
Yeah. All right. And that concludes your contributions to this month's show. As always, it's been a delight reading them and discussing them. And so we might take a quick commercial break and we'll be back just with the updates of what's coming up and we'll close out the show.
Hi, I'm Luke. I've got a list for that Schaefer. I'm a co-host on the Best Firefight podcast, Controlled Fire, and you're listening to Countercharge.
Welcome back. So don't forget you can help the show by sharing the show with the community or by reviewing us on whatever platform that you're downloading and listening us to on, and it just helps get people interested in Kings of War. In terms of the schedule, we've got our Lore Masters Library for April being Steps to Deliverance. Look out for the post asking for questions. We've got list builders upcoming. We've had a lot of fun with these and continue to expect at least 1 or 2 of these per month for the conceivable future. And army reviews, we've got a few cooking. Order of the Green Lady is recording in May. I think it's likely that Rordia will record later this month or in May. We've got the Ogres one coming and we've got tons of Acon content coming. And then it will be time to prepare for Jeremy's Masters. And I think you'll be going and getting lots and lots of shows, won't you, Rob?
Yeah, Andy and I are basically running a chase wagon. You ever watch like the Tour de France where you got the guys that chase the bikes and when they have a flat tire, they can come out and repair it?
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do. And I think we're going to be hauling a bunch of armies. So, and I heard terrible news last night that with construction, it might be 30 hours to get there now by car.
Oh my Lord.
So I don't know. We're gonna have to think about that if there's a different way to go. So more to come on that. But with that, it's time for us to share next month's topic of the month. And Matt, we've been giving them such hard-hitting, difficult questions. They're hard to read, hard to understand. And make them really put a thoughtful response together. I thought, let's give them a softball.
Okay.
Give us your wish list for 4th edition. We look forward to hearing your responses.
Don't worry about length. You can give us a lengthy wish list. Write your list to Santa Rob. Let's see what gets delivered. But it'll be an interesting one to revisit after the drop of 4th edition.
All right. Well, that's going to do us tonight. Thanks for listening. And until next time, keep countercharging.
Thanks for listening. and we'll see you next time on Countercharge. Please let us know what you thought of the show by emailing us at counterchargepodcast@gmail.com, on Twitter at countercharge15, or by commenting on the Countercharge Kings of War podcast Facebook group. If you enjoy the show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. Until next time, keep countercharging. Music is a composition of Kevin MacLeod and is licensed under Creative Commons.